The Duke placed the arrest order beside his wife's untouched breakfast. "Confess to poisoning my heir," Nathaniel said, "and I may spare your family's name." Eleanor stared at his signature rather than his face. The final stroke cut across the parchment with the same ruthless certainty he had once used to sign their marriage settlement. Across the long breakfast table, 12-year-old Thomas sat wrapped in a wool robe, his skin pale beneath a sheen of sweat. His fingers trembled around the edge of his plate. He had been ill for 11 days, and Eleanor had spent 10 of those nights beside his bed. Now 2 armed men stood between them. "I did not poison him," she said. Lady Beatrice Vale occupied the chair at Nathaniel's right, a place reserved for the Duchess whenever the family dined formally. She wore dark blue silk and an expression of carefully measured sorrow. "The kitchen maid saw you pour something into Thomas's medicine," Beatrice said. "Must the child die before you admit what you have done?" Eleanor looked at the maid standing near the door. Lucy's swollen eyes remained fixed on the carpet. "Look at me," Eleanor said gently. The girl flinched. Nathaniel struck the table with his palm. "You will not intimidate a witness. I am asking her to look at the woman she has accused. She has already given me her statement. And did you ask why the symptoms began 3 days before I prepared that medicine?" A muscle moved in Nathaniel's jaw. For one instant, Eleanor believed he might finally turn toward the treatment journal lying near his hand. It contained every fever, meal, medicine, and relapse recorded in her precise script. She had begged him to read it the previous night. He had refused. "I have heard enough explanations disguised as expertise," he said. "You had access to Thomas. You controlled his medicines. And you knew that if he died, my cousin's branch would inherit." Beatrice lowered her eyes, as though embarrassed by the mention of her own advantage. Eleanor felt something inside her grow still. Nathaniel knew she had never wanted the dukedom. He knew she had raised Thomas after the boy's parents died, had taught him to ride, and had slept on the floor beside him through a winter fever. Yet fear had offered her husband an uglier version of her, and wounded pride had made him embrace it. "Your Grace," Beatrice murmured. "Perhaps the Duchess should surrender her keys before she is removed." Nathaniel held out his hand. The ring of household keys hung at Eleanor's waist. They opened the linen rooms, the still room, the medicine cabinet, and every service passage used by the senior staff. Giving them up meant more than losing authority. It meant surrendering control of the rooms where the remaining medicines and records were kept. Eleanor unclipped the ring, but did not place it in Nathaniel's palm. "If you give these keys to Lady Beatrice, she will have unrestricted access to Thomas's rooms. She will protect him from you, then seal the medicine cabinet and give the key to Dr. Harcourt." The court physician stiffened near the fireplace but said nothing. It was Nathaniel's final chance to pause. Instead, he took the keys from Eleanor and placed them before Beatrice. "You are no longer mistress of this household," he said. Beatrice closed her fingers around the ring. A faint violet stain marked the side of her glove. Eleanor noticed it because her father had trained her to notice changes in color. Violet wax was uncommon at Blackmere. Nathaniel used black for estate matters and red for private correspondence. Eleanor sealed her medical notes with plain beeswax. Beatrice quickly folded her hands beneath the table. One of the guards stepped forward. "Your Grace, shall we take the Duchess to the West Tower?" Thomas pushed himself upright. "No." His spoon clattered against the china. Nathaniel turned toward him. "She didn't hurt me." Thomas's voice shook, but he forced the words out. "She stayed, when everyone else was afraid." Eleanor's chest tightened. "Thomas, do not stand." The boy took one step toward her, then gripped the table as pain crossed his face. Beatrice rose. "He is becoming distressed. Remove her now." A footman hurried to clear Eleanor's untouched place setting. He lifted her plate, folded napkin, and silver cup onto a tray. Thomas watched him leave through the side door. Eleanor saw the boy's expression change. Not fear. Recognition. "Thomas?" she asked. He looked at Lady Beatrice, then at the door through which the footman had disappeared. "That cup," he whispered. No one moved. Thomas stumbled into the corridor before Nathaniel could stop him. A crash followed, then a cry. Eleanor ran, despite the guards reaching for her. She found Thomas lying on the carpet beside the overturned tray. Her silver cup rolled in a slow circle near his hand, watered wine spilling across the floor. He had drunk from it. His lips were already turning pale. "Move back!" Dr. Harcourt shouted. Eleanor dropped beside the child. Thomas's breathing came in shallow, broken pulls. She smelled the wine, touched one drop to the edge of her tongue, and immediately spat it out. Bitter almonds. Nathaniel appeared behind her. His face lost all colour. "That was your cup," he said. "My untouched cup." Beatrice pressed a hand to her mouth. "He must have taken it by mistake." Eleanor looked at the silver falcon, engraved along its side. The bird faced inward. Every cup in the Blackmere service had been designed with the falcon facing outward when held in the right hand. This one had not been turned. Its base had been removed and reattached backward. Someone had opened the hollow stem. Someone had filled it with poison. Thomas seized Eleanor's sleeve with weakening fingers. "I saw it," he gasped. "What did you see?" "The purple wax." "In her room." His eyes moved toward Beatrice. Then his body went limp in Eleanor's arms. "Thomas." Nathaniel dropped to his knees, but Eleanor caught his wrist before he could lift the boy. "Do not move him." "Harcourt, bring your case and hot water." "Now." The physician obeyed before the Duke could speak. Eleanor loosened Thomas's collar, turned his head to keep his airway clear, and pressed 2 fingers below his jaw. His pulse fluttered weakly. "Can you save him?" Nathaniel demanded. "Only if everyone stops shouting." She smelled the boy's breath again. The bitter almond trace was faint but unmistakable. Her father had once treated a jeweler, exposed to the same poison while gilding silver. The man had survived, because treatment began within minutes. Eleanor pointed toward the overturned cup. "No one touches that. Close the corridor and keep every servant here." Lady Beatrice took a backward step. Nathaniel noticed. "Where are you going?" "To fetch blankets." "Stay," Eleanor said. Beatrice's expression hardened. "You are under arrest. You cannot command me. I am the only person in this corridor who recognizes what was placed in that cup. Until Thomas breathes normally, you will stay where I can see you." Nathaniel's gaze shifted between them. Then he turned to the guards. "Close the doors." Beatrice became very still. Dr. Harcourt returned with his leather case. Eleanor named what she needed, and he passed each item without questioning her. Together, they worked over Thomas, while Nathaniel knelt uselessly on the wine-soaked carpet. Eleanor forced herself not to look at her husband. Anger could wait. Thomas could not. The boy coughed once. Then again, his body convulsed, and Eleanor held him safely on his side until the spasm passed. A thin breath escaped his lips. "There," Harcourt said. "Again, lad. Take another." Thomas dragged air into his lungs. Nathaniel bowed his head, one hand covering his mouth. Eleanor continued counting the boy's pulse. She did not allow herself relief until its rhythm strengthened beneath her fingers. "He must be moved to a room with open windows," she said. "No wine, no food, and no medicine, unless Dr. Harcourt or I prepare it." Nathaniel looked up. "You are confined by my order. Then decide whether your pride matters more than his life." The word struck him harder than a shout. Harcourt closed his case. "Your Grace, the Duchess is correct. I cannot identify the exact preparation without further examination, but her response prevented the poison from taking full effect." "Could she have arranged this?" Beatrice asked. "She may have poisoned her own cup, knowing Thomas would follow her." Eleanor rose slowly. Wine stained the knees of her gown. "How could I know he would leave the dining room, chase a footman, and drink from a cup that had been removed without my instruction? He is devoted to you. You could have trained him to defend you." Thomas stirred against the folded cloak beneath his head. "No," he whispered. Beatrice leaned toward him. "You need not speak." His eyes opened. "They found Eleanor first. I saw your cup yesterday." "Where?" "In Lady Beatrice's sitting room." Nathaniel turned sharply. Beatrice gave a breathless laugh. "The child is confused. He has suffered 2 attacks in as many days." "It was beside purple wax," Thomas insisted. "And a little knife." Beatrice's face showed nothing now, but the violet stain remained on her glove. Eleanor remembered the same wax on the arrest order. Nathaniel had signed it in his study that morning, yet its seal had already been prepared when the document was brought to him. Someone had known the order would be issued before he agreed to issue it. "Search her rooms." Nathaniel rose. "You do not give orders here, then give the order yourself." He hesitated. That hesitation told Eleanor more than his accusation had. Even with Thomas poisoned by a cup found in Beatrice's room, Nathaniel still feared the humiliation of admitting he might have condemned his wife too quickly. Beatrice touched his sleeve. "My cousin, think carefully. A search based on the confused words of a sick child will become a scandal. The Chancellor arrives in 3 days. If he hears that your household is in chaos, he will hear something worse if Thomas dies," Eleanor said. Nathaniel pulled his arm away from Beatrice. "Search the rooms." One guard departed. Beatrice watched him go, her composure strained for the first time. Eleanor asked Harcourt to carry Thomas into the nearby morning room. When Nathaniel moved to follow, she blocked the doorway. "No, he is my heir, and you placed his safety in the hands of a woman he has just accused." Nathaniel's eyes flashed. "Be careful, Eleanor." "I was careful. I recorded every symptom. I asked you to examine the journal. I asked you to seal the medicines. You refused each time." She removed her wedding ring and placed it on top of the folded arrest order a servant had carried from the breakfast room. "I will keep Thomas alive, because he is a child, and because I love him. I will not do it as an obedient wife, pretending you did not choose this." Nathaniel stared at the ring. "What are you saying?" "I am setting my boundary. You will not enter the treatment room, remove Thomas, or administer anything without my consent. When he is stable, I will leave Blackmere under separate maintenance, not as your prisoner. You have no authority to dictate those terms. My marriage settlement does." His expression changed. For 6 years, Eleanor had managed the estate's charitable infirmary, using income protected by that settlement. She had reduced winter deaths in the tenant villages by more than half, and paid for Thomas's medical care from the same secured fund. Nathaniel had praised the results publicly, while rarely acknowledging who produced them. If the poisoning accusation stood, she would lose access to that income. The infirmary would close before winter. Dr. Harcourt paused beside Thomas's makeshift bed. "Your Grace, every medicine used on this estate for the past 4 years has been entered in the Duchess's records. I have inspected them myself. If she intended murder, she created the most complete evidence against herself imaginable." Nathaniel looked toward the treatment journal, still lying unopened on the breakfast table. Footsteps sounded in the corridor. The guard returned, carrying a wooden box. "Lady Beatrice's sitting room has been cleared," he said. The grate was still warm. "We found this beneath the ashes." Inside lay a stick of violet sealing wax and a narrow silver blade stained dark at the tip. But when Eleanor lifted the blade toward the window, she saw the engraved initials on its handle. They were her own. Nathaniel took the blade before Eleanor could examine it more closely. The ivory handle bore an engraved E.W., the initials she had used before becoming Duchess of Blackmere. "It belonged to my father," Eleanor said. "He used it to cut sealing wax from medicine bottles. And now it has been found in Lady Beatrice's grate," Nathaniel replied. "After she was given my keys and enough time to clear her rooms, Beatrice stepped forward, outrage sharpening her voice. "Are you suggesting I planted it? The blade was already there when I entered this house. The Duchess must have hidden it in my room. You arrived 6 weeks ago. Why would I hide evidence of a poisoning that began only 11 days ago?" Beatrice's lips parted, but no answer came. Nathaniel looked down at the blade. He had noticed the contradiction. Eleanor saw it in the tightening of his grip. Yet instead of acknowledging it, he gave the box back to the guard and ordered both objects locked in his study. "No one will draw conclusions until Dr. Harcourt examines them. Your study can be opened with the master key," Eleanor said. Beatrice's hand moved instinctively toward the ring at her waist. Nathaniel followed the movement, then looked away. "The key remains with me." He held out his palm, and after a moment, Beatrice surrendered the ring. It was a small victory, but it removed her unrestricted access to Thomas and the medicine rooms. Eleanor entered the morning room and shut the door behind her. Thomas lay beneath 2 blankets near the open window. His breathing was steadier, though every few minutes his fingers twitched against the sheet. Eleanor sat beside him while Harcourt measured his pulse. "He will live through the hour," the physician said quietly. "Beyond that, I will not promise. Then we watch him through every hour." Harcourt studied her stained gown. "Your father would have been proud of what you did." The kindness nearly broke the control she had maintained since breakfast. Eleanor turned toward the window, so no one would see her eyes fill. Her father had taught her that a physician's first duty was not to be certain, but to remain useful, while certainty was impossible. Nathaniel had once admired that lesson. During the first year of their marriage, he had carried crates of linen into her infirmary and laughed when she ordered a duke to scrub his hands. Somewhere between his uncle's death, the inheritance crisis, and the Chancellor's promise of political advancement, admiration had become resentment. Eleanor had continued solving problems. He wanted the world to believe he had solved himself. A soft tug at her sleeve drew her back. Thomas was awake. "The cup was not in Beatrice's room by accident," he whispered. "Tell me exactly what you saw." "Her door was open yesterday. She was speaking to Mr. Crow." Crow was the estate steward, the only man besides Nathaniel who regularly inspected the household silver. "What did they say?" "He said the falcon had to face the wrong way, or they would not know which one it was." Eleanor exchanged a glance with Harcourt. "Did they see you?" Thomas shook his head. "I dropped my lesson book. Lady Beatrice came into the corridor, but I ran." "Where is the book now?" "Under the blue chair outside her room." Eleanor asked Harcourt to remain with him, then opened the door. Nathaniel stood alone in the corridor, staring at the wedding ring still resting on the arrest order. Beatrice and the guards had gone. "I need Thomas's lesson book," Eleanor said. "Why?" "Because it may confirm when he was outside Beatrice's room. He is feverish. His memory cannot be trusted. His description of the reversed falcon was made before I explained what it meant." Nathaniel's gaze shifted toward the silver cup. Beatrice could not have known Thomas would drink from it. Perhaps he was never the intended victim this morning. Silence settled between them. Nathaniel looked at the cup again, and Eleanor watched him understand that it had been placed at her setting. If she had drunk first, she would now be dead, and her death would have appeared to be the suicide of a guilty woman. "You are assuming too much," he said, but his voice had weakened. "And you assumed enough to sign my arrest order." They crossed the house with one guard following. The blue chair stood outside Beatrice's sitting room, but no book lay beneath it. Fresh scratches marked the floorboards, as though the chair had recently been dragged aside. Eleanor knelt and found a torn strip of paper caught between the wall and the skirting board. It came from Thomas's Latin exercise book, and 3 words remained in the boy's handwriting. "Falco, ad sinistram," the falcon to the left. On the reverse was the faint imprint of figures written on another sheet, while the fragment lay underneath. Eleanor carried it to the window and angled it toward the light. The columns resembled inventory numbers, but the final marks were not quantities. They were dates. 11 days, 9 days, 6 days, and 3 days earlier the exact dates of Thomas's attacks. Beside each date appeared the same abbreviation, S. C. "Silver cup," Nathaniel said. "Or south cellar," Eleanor replied. The wine served at breakfast had come from the south cellar, but the silver was stored in the locked plate room. Only Crow had access to both. Nathaniel immediately shook his head. Crow has served Blackmere for 20 years. Then questioning him should prove his innocence. The Chancellor's representatives are already inspecting the estate. If word spreads that my steward is suspected of poisoning my heir, the inquirer could destroy my appointment. Eleanor rose. "Your appointment is exactly what makes your silence valuable to them." He did not answer. From inside Beatrice's sitting room came the soft click of a window latch. Eleanor pushed open the door and saw Beatrice standing beside the curtains. The room appeared empty, but an open window overlooked the service courtyard. Far below, Crow was hurrying toward the south cellar, with Thomas's missing lesson book beneath his arm. Eleanor reached for the bell rope, but Beatrice seized it first. Their eyes met, and Beatrice's practiced sorrow disappeared. "You should have drunk from your own cup," she said. Then she pulled the rope twice, the estate signal for fire. The alarm bell thundered through Blackmere before Eleanor could reach the window. In the courtyard below, servants abandoned their work and ran toward the south cellar, exactly where Crow was carrying Thomas's lesson book. Beatrice released the rope and stepped away. "If there is a fire, you should be grateful," I warned them. "You did not look outside before sounding the alarm." Eleanor seized the household keys from the table and threw them through the open doorway to Nathaniel. "Lock Lady Beatrice in this room." "You cannot imprison me," Beatrice cried. Nathaniel caught the keys, but hesitated long enough for Beatrice to rush toward the door. Eleanor blocked her. "Thomas is alive because you failed to mark the altered cup correctly. Crow is running because he knows the boy saw him. If this fire destroys the cellar records, you will claim the poison came from my medicine cabinet." Beatrice slapped her. The blow snapped Eleanor's head sideways. Nathaniel caught his cousin's arm before she could strike again. His face hardened, but when he spoke, it was still Eleanor he ordered to stop. "Go back to Thomas. I will handle this." Smoke rose beyond the courtyard wall. Eleanor heard servants shouting that 2 scullery girls were trapped below. "Your steward chose a cellar with one narrow stair," she said. "If you handle it as badly as you handled the accusation, they will be dead before you finish protecting your reputation." She ran. The south cellar door stood open, pouring black smoke into the passage. Crow was nowhere in sight. A young footman struggled with a water barrel, while frightened servants crowded the entrance. Eleanor ordered them back and pressed a wet cloth over her mouth. She knew the cellar's layout because she had reorganized the estate's winter supplies after a fever outbreak 3 years earlier. The main stair curved left toward the wine racks, but a narrow delivery hatch connected the far storage chamber to the kitchen yard. "Open the delivery hatch," she told the footman. "It has been nailed shut since winter. Use an axe." His Grace said no one enters until he arrives. Eleanor pointed to the smoke thickening along the ceiling. "Then decide whether you serve the Duke's command or the living people trapped below." The footman grabbed an axe. Eleanor descended before fear could make her reconsider. Heat pressed against her face. Near the second landing, she found one girl coughing beside an overturned crate. Eleanor pulled her upright and guided her toward the stairs. "Where is the other?" "In the records room." Mr. Crow locked it. Eleanor pushed deeper into the smoke. Flames had reached the shelves where wine deliveries and cellar inventories were stored. She found the second girl beating both fists against a locked door. The brass key would not turn. Someone had broken its tip inside the lock. Eleanor took an iron hook from the wall, wedged it beneath the latch, and used her weight until the wood split. The girl fell into her arms. A burning beam crashed across the path to the stairs. For one terrible instant, Eleanor could see no route out. Then daylight broke through the far wall as the footman smashed open the delivery hatch. Eleanor pushed the girl through first and crawled after her as fire caught the hem of her gown. Hands dragged them into the yard and smothered the flames with a blanket. Nathaniel arrived as Eleanor struggled to stand. Instead of asking whether she was injured, he looked toward the cellar. "Where is Crow?" He locked a servant inside the records room and fled. The rescued girl clutched Eleanor's sleeve. "I saw him, Your Grace. He poured lamp oil over the shelves. When I asked what he was doing, he took my key and locked me in." Nathaniel stared at her. She was shaking so violently that Eleanor wrapped the blanket around both of them. "What is your name?" Eleanor asked. "Mary." "Mary, tell Dr. Harcourt exactly what you breathed and where it hurts. No one will dismiss you from service for speaking the truth." Nathaniel looked stung by the promise. "No servant will be punished without my authority. Lady Beatrice dismissed Lucy this morning after obtaining her statement against me. I gave no such order. You gave Beatrice my keys and my authority. Every order she issued was made possible by yours." Before he could respond, Lady Beatrice appeared at the courtyard entrance, accompanied by 2 Chancellor's representatives. She had escaped through the sitting-room window and crossed the gallery roof. Her hair was loose, and she had torn one sleeve to make herself appear injured. "Thank heaven the Duke found the fire in time," she cried. He organized the servants while the Duchess ran into the cellar and endangered everyone. The representatives turned toward Nathaniel. Eleanor waited for him to correct the lie. He looked at the smoking cellar, the assembled servants, and the 2 men whose approval controlled his appointment. "The fire is contained," he said carefully. "That is all that matters." Beatrice's account spread through the courtyard before Eleanor had even removed the burned cloth from her ankle. Nathaniel received praise for decisive leadership. Eleanor received whispers that guilt had driven her into reckless theatrics. Then the footman who had opened the delivery hatch approached. Soot blackened his face, but he held Thomas's damaged lesson book. "I found this behind the records room door," he said. Mr. Crow must have dropped it when he locked Mary inside. Several pages had burned away. Between the surviving leaves rested a narrow strip of silver, engraved with half a falcon. It had been cut from the base of one of the ducal cups. Eleanor placed it beside the poisoned cup, aligning the broken edges. The pieces matched. The strip proved that the cup had been opened inside the cellar, where Crow controlled the inventory. More importantly, its reverse carried a tiny maker's number. "Every piece in the Blackmere silver service was recorded when it was commissioned," Eleanor said. The plate ledger will show when this cup was removed and who signed for it. Beatrice folded her arms. How convenient that the ledger was destroyed in the fire. The estate copy was destroyed, Eleanor replied. The silversmith keeps the original. Nathaniel looked toward the road leading into the village. The silversmith's shop stood less than a mile away. He could send a rider, examine the original register, and learn the truth before sunset. Eleanor placed the silver strip in his palm. This is the investigation. You refused me the first time. Choose differently now. Nathaniel closed his fingers around the evidence. Beatrice leaned close and whispered something Eleanor could not hear. When Nathaniel looked up, fear not. Doubt had returned to his face. Nathaniel drew Beatrice aside. She handed him a sealed letter, confirming that a royal official would arrive the following morning to decide whether Blackmere could oversee the Crown's local storehouses. What does it say? Eleanor asked. That my new position depends upon proving this household remains under control. Eleanor understood. Beatrice had not chosen this moment by accident. If Nathaniel admitted that his heir had been poisoned, his cellar burned, and his steward suspected, he would lose the office he had spent years pursuing. The attacks began after this inspection was announced, Eleanor said. Someone needs you frightened enough to silence every question. Beatrice gave a soft laugh. Now she invents a conspiracy, because a burned piece of silver appeared inside a child's book. Send someone to the silversmith, Eleanor told Nathaniel. One register can prove whether the cup was altered. Nathaniel looked at the injured servants, then at the royal official waiting for his answer. This was his final chance to choose Thomas over his ambition. No one leaves Blackmere, he said. I will not have rumors reaching the village before tomorrow's inspection. Eleanor stared at him. You are protecting a position you have not yet received from the people who poisoned your heir. I am protecting this family. No, you are protecting how powerful you believe this family makes you. Eleanor stared at him. Whose inquiry? Mine. You have refused every fact that threatens the answer you already chose. Nathaniel's voice dropped. If these men report that I cannot govern my own house, the appointment will pass to another family. Blackmere will lose its influence for a generation. And, if you accept it without discovering why Thomas was poisoned, you may give his attackers control over far more than this house. Enough. He ordered the guards to seize Eleanor. The soot-covered footman stepped between them before fear overcame him. Your Grace, she saved Mary. She told me how to open the hatch. Nathaniel's face tightened. Return to your duties. But the Duchess spoke the truth about Mr. Crow. Return to your duties, or leave my service. The young man lowered his head and stepped away. Mary tried to speak, but Beatrice reminded her that Lucy had already been dismissed for contradicting her superiors. The girl clutched the blanket and fell silent. Eleanor did not blame either servant. Nathaniel had shown them that truth would cost their livelihood, while obedience would protect it. What are you ordering? Eleanor asked. He faced the Chancellor's representatives, not his wife. Eleanor Whitcomb, Duchess of Blackmere, will be confined pending formal examination for the attempted murder of Thomas Vale. Her medical authority is revoked. Her infirmary and secured income will be placed under temporary estate administration. That last sentence struck deeper than the accusation. The infirmary is protected by our settlement. The estate solicitor believes the protection may be suspended if the funds supported criminal activity. Beatrice had not merely targeted Eleanor's freedom, she intended to seize the one income Nathaniel could not otherwise touch. 40 tenant families depended on the infirmary for winter medicines. Did you read the settlement yourself? Eleanor asked. My solicitor summarized it. The same solicitor recommended by Lady Beatrice. Nathaniel said nothing. Eleanor removed the infirmary key from the ribbon hidden beneath her collar. She had kept it separate from the household ring because her father's trust required it to remain under her control. You may imprison me, she said, closing her fingers around it. But I will not surrender this key voluntarily. Do not make this worse. Worse than accusing me without examining the poisoned cup. Worse than rewarding the woman whose rooms contained it. Worse than taking medicine from sick families to protect a political office. His composure cracked. You speak as if everything I have done was for vanity. Then tell me what part was for Thomas. Nathaniel had no answer. The guards escorted Eleanor toward the West Tower, while Beatrice ordered the household to prepare for the Chancellor's formal arrival the following morning, 2 days earlier than expected. As Eleanor crossed the gallery, she saw Crow through a window. He had not fled the estate. He stood beside the northern warehouses speaking with 3 unfamiliar men, while labourers rolled sealed barrels onto wagons marked with the Crown's supply insignia. The barrels were supposed to contain lamp oil, yet they were being handled with the caution used for volatile mining powder. Eleanor slowed. One wagon sank deeply into the mud, despite carrying only 6 barrels. Its weight was wrong. "What is stored in the northern warehouses?" she asked the guard. "Grain and medical spirits." "Your Grace." "Not any more." The guard tightened his grip on her arm but glanced uneasily through the window. Crow looked up and saw them. He gave an order, and workers pulled a canvas over the wagons. Eleanor finally understood why Crow had helped Beatrice. The steward had been stealing from the Crown's storehouses and hiding the losses inside Blackmere's accounts. Once Nathaniel received his new position, Crow would gain access to larger shipments without ordinary inspection. Eleanor's records could expose him. Thomas had seen the altered cup. Both of them had to be removed. At the tower door, Dr. Harcourt waited with news that Thomas had awakened and was calling for Eleanor. Nathaniel refused to let her see him. "Lady Beatrice will remain with the boy," he said. "She cannot distinguish a fever medicine from furniture polish," Harcourt replied. "You will supervise her, and when I leave the room—" Nathaniel looked at Eleanor, but pride would not allow him to reverse the order he had made before the entire household. "The Duchess remains confined." Before the guards closed the door, Harcourt slipped Eleanor the scorched page and a fragment of violet wax. "I kept what they did not know mattered," he whispered. The lock turned. From the tower window, Eleanor saw Crow ordering workers to move several unmarked barrels out of the storehouse. They handled each one with unnatural care. One worker dropped a barrel. A dark trail of gunpowder leaked across the wagon floor. Eleanor tore a blank strip from the lining of the arrest order and wrote 3 words with a charred splinter from the hearth. "Weigh the barrels." She wrapped the message around the violet wax and waited at the tower window until she saw Mary crossing the lower courtyard with a basket of scorched linen. "Mary!" Eleanor called. The girl looked up, frightened, then glanced toward the guards below. Eleanor dropped the bundle. It landed behind a rain barrel near Mary's feet. "Take it to Dr. Harcourt. Tell him Thomas's life depends upon it." Mary hesitated only once before hiding the bundle beneath the linen. 20 minutes later, Harcourt entered the northern yard and ordered one of the wagons stopped, claiming its medical spirits had to be inspected before transport. Crow refused. Their argument drew Nathaniel from the house, followed by Beatrice and the Chancellor's representatives. Eleanor could not hear every word from the tower, but she saw Harcourt hand Nathaniel the wax imprint. Nathaniel looked toward her window. For the first time that day, he appeared to understand that the danger extended beyond his family. He ordered the final wagon unloaded. Crow drew a pistol. The horses reared as servants scattered across the yard. A shot cracked through the evening air, striking a lantern from a stable post. Burning oil spilled beneath the wagon. Crow cut the traces and fled on horseback, while flames climbed one wooden wheel. "Move away from the barrels," Eleanor screamed, though no one below could hear her clearly. The weight, the royal arsenal seal, and the care with which the men had handled the cargo left only one conclusion. The barrels did not contain spirits. They contained gunpowder. Nathaniel ran toward the wagon, intending to pull it away from the stables. Harcourt caught his coat and dragged him back as the first barrel exploded. The blast shattered every lower window in the west wing. Eleanor was thrown against the tower wall. Glass cut her temple, and for several seconds she could hear nothing but a high metallic ringing. When she forced herself upright, half the northern yard had vanished behind smoke. The stable roof burned, horses kicked through broken stall doors, and servants crawled across the stones. Nathaniel emerged from the smoke, carrying the young footman who had opened the cellar hatch. Blood covered one side of the Duke's face. Beatrice stood unharmed beneath the archway, staring not at the injured, but at the road where the earlier wagons had disappeared. The explosion tore the wagon apart. Eleanor struck the tower wall as every lower window shattered. When she forced herself upright, smoke covered the yard, and wounded servants were crawling across the stones. Nathaniel emerged carrying the young footman who had opened the cellar hatch. Blood ran from his temple. For one brief instant, Eleanor saw the man she had once loved, the man who had carried medicine through winter storms and sat beside sick tenants without caring who saw him. Then he looked at the broken barrels. Pistols, cartridges, and stolen gunpowder lay scattered through the burning yard. Every crate bore the seal attached to Nathaniel's new authority. The royal official lifted one of Nathaniel's signed orders. "You stopped the silversmith from being summoned," he said. "You prevented the stores from being searched. These goods left the warehouse under your name. I did not know what Crow had hidden. You chose not to know." Nathaniel looked toward Eleanor's tower window. His ambition had not merely failed to protect the family. It had given Crow the time and authority to endanger everyone inside Blackmere. His new position was withdrawn immediately. But Eleanor saw that the loss of office was not what broke him. Thomas remained inside the house with Beatrice, and Nathaniel had surrendered the power to protect him. The tower guard abandoned his post to help the injured. Eleanor found the key hanging in the lock outside and freed herself. She reached the yard as Harcourt examined the footman's broken leg. "Thomas?" she asked. "Still conscious when I left him." A second explosion sounded faintly from beyond the trees. Eleanor turned toward Blackmere Bridge. Orange light rose above the road. One of the wagons had ignited while crossing, blocking the only direct route to the village. The bridge carried the estate's main water conduit beneath its stone deck. If the blast fractured that pipe, the infirmary, tenant cottages, and Thomas's rooms would lose their clean water. Beatrice approached Nathaniel through the smoke. "Crow deceived us all. We must return to Thomas before Eleanor uses this confusion to reach him." Eleanor heard the urgency beneath her words. Beatrice no longer needed the poison to kill Thomas slowly. With the estate under crown seizure and the supply scheme exposed, the boy was the only witness who had seen her room, the altered cup, and Crow. "Harcourt," Eleanor said. "What medicine is due at midnight?" "The restorative tonic, from the locked cabinet." "Which cabinet?" His face changed. "The one Lady Beatrice can open with the small brass key." Nathaniel reached for the household ring at his belt, but the brass key was missing. Beatrice had surrendered the large keys while keeping the smallest one concealed. She stepped backward. "You cannot possibly believe I would harm him now, with half the household watching." "Half the household is fighting fires," Eleanor said. Beatrice turned and ran toward the west entrance. Nathaniel started after her, but a crown officer blocked his way and demanded that he surrender his sword. "You are under temporary detention pending examination of these weapons. My heir is in danger. You used that same claim to imprison the woman who exposed this cargo." The officer removed Nathaniel's sword and ordered soldiers to confine him in the library. Nathaniel looked at Eleanor across the burning yard. He could no longer open a door, command a guard, or stop the woman to whom he had transferred authority. "Save him," he said. "I will save Thomas because he is innocent," Eleanor replied. "Do not mistake that for saving you." She ran toward the house with Harcourt beside her, but the explosion at the bridge had ruptured the water conduit. Dirty water surged through the lower passage, carrying splintered wood and broken glass into their path. The main stair was blocked by fire crews. Eleanor led Harcourt through the old laundry rooms toward a narrow servant's stair she had used during Thomas's childhood illnesses. When they reached the upper corridor, they found Lucy, the dismissed maid, lying unconscious outside Thomas's locked door. A medicine tray rested beside her. One cup was empty. From inside the room came Beatrice's voice, soothing and soft. "Drink the rest, dear boy. By midnight, no one will ever doubt which woman poisoned you." The corridor clock began to strike 11. Eleanor examined the spilled drops on Lucy's sleeve and recognized a different scent from the first poison. This one would slow Thomas's heart gradually and resemble the final collapse of his existing illness. They had less than 1 hour to reach him, identify the dose, and reverse it before every witness believed Eleanor's poison had finally killed the heir. Eleanor threw her shoulder against the door. The oak barely moved. Harcourt examined the lock while she knelt beside Lucy and found a pulse. "Drugged, not poisoned," she said. Beatrice needed her silent. Harcourt drove the iron handle of his medical case beneath the latch. Together, they forced it until the wood split. The door opened onto an empty bed. A curtain stirred beside the dressing room passage, and Eleanor heard Thomas choking. She rushed through and found him slumped in a chair, while Beatrice pressed a cup against his mouth. Eleanor struck it away. The liquid splashed across the carpet. Beatrice reached for a fireplace poker, but Harcourt caught her wrist. She twisted free, shoved him into a cabinet, and escaped through the adjoining nursery before the guards reached the corridor. Eleanor did not follow. Thomas's pulse was slow and irregular. His pupils narrowed. The spilled tonic smelled of poppies and bitter herbs. Laudanum, Harcourt said. Far more than a child's dose. Eleanor made Thomas walk between them while he was still conscious, then administered the treatment her father had taught her and refused to let the boy sleep. Tell me about the Latin passage you translated yesterday, she ordered. Thomas's eyelids drooped. The falcon flies left. And where does it land? I don't know. Then stay awake until you invent an ending. For nearly 2 hours, Eleanor kept him speaking while Harcourt monitored his breathing. Shortly after 1 in the morning, Thomas vomited the remaining tonic and his pulse began to strengthen. By dawn, the immediate danger had passed. Crown officers searched Blackmere, but Beatrice had vanished through the nursery stair. Eleanor refused to remain in the house that had imprisoned her. With Harcourt's support, she moved Thomas and Lucy to the village infirmary, where the protected trust placed the building beyond the estate administrator's direct control. The tenants formed a watch at every entrance before she asked them to. For the first time since the accusation, Eleanor worked from a place where Nathaniel's command could not remove her keys, dismiss her witnesses, or surrender her rooms to another woman. She placed the poisoned cup, the silver fragment, the wax, and Thomas's damaged exercise book inside separate cloth wrappings. Harcourt signed and dated each label, and Mary and the footman added their marks as witnesses. If any of us is silenced, Eleanor said, the others can establish where every object came from. Lucy awoke near midday and confessed that Beatrice had threatened her younger brother's position at the estate school unless she accused Eleanor. She had seen Crow place a vial inside Eleanor's medicine cabinet, but fear had kept her silent. Will Thomas hate me? She asked through tears. Thomas will know you returned, when running would have been safer, Eleanor said. But you must tell the truth publicly, not merely to me. Lucy agreed. The village silversmith arrived carrying his original commission register. The maker's number on the fragment belonged to Thomas's cup, not Eleanor's. 3 weeks earlier, Crow had brought that cup for repair, claiming its stem had loosened. He had also ordered a second cup altered, so the engraved falcon faced inward. The silversmith remembered Beatrice choosing which cup would be returned to Thomas's place and which would be placed before Eleanor. Eleanor finally understood why their attacks occurred at different times. Thomas's cup released tiny amounts of poison whenever warm liquid softened a wax plug inside the stem. Eleanor's cup held a larger dose meant to kill her immediately after Nathaniel accused her. The reversed falcons allowed Beatrice to distinguish the 2 altered cups. Thomas had seen the marking and unknowingly described the entire method. Harcourt compared the violet residue inside the hollow stem with the wax from the royal arsenal seal. Both contained the same uncommon blue mineral pigment. Crow had used stolen arsenal wax to reseal the cups, linking the poisoning to the weapons shipments. It was not a confession, but it was a chain that could survive public questioning. Nathaniel was brought to the infirmary under guard that afternoon, so Harcourt could dress the cut along his temple. He stopped inside the entrance when he saw the crowded beds. Tenant children slept beneath clean blankets. An elderly labourer received medicine measured from Eleanor's records. Mary sat beside Lucy, helping her prepare a written statement. Nathaniel stopped inside the infirmary. Every bed was occupied, and several tenant children slept beneath blankets embroidered with Eleanor's initials. I was told this place served 12 families, he said. 43, Eleanor replied. My trust pays for those who cannot afford treatment. He looked at the shelves of medicine and the women working beside Harcourt. You built all of this? While you allowed the estate to report it as its own achievement. Nathaniel lowered his eyes. For years, her work had made Blackmere appear generous and well-governed. He had accepted the praise without asking who carried the burden. I should have known. You should have asked. Nathaniel closed his eyes briefly. Each quiet achievement contradicted the image of a selfish, ambitious wife he had chosen to believe. I should have read your records. Yes. I should have searched Beatrice's room before signing anything. Yes. Eleanor, I. Do not apologize while Thomas is still hiding from every cup placed before him. He looked toward the room where the boy rested. What can I do? Tell the Crown officers exactly why you prevented the silversmith's verification. Admit that you chose your appointment over the evidence. That statement may cost me Blackmere's seat in Parliament. Then it will cost you something real. Nathaniel accepted the condition. Before leaving, He placed Eleanor's wedding ring on the table without asking her to wear it. "I found this beside the order," he said. "It belongs to you, whatever you choose to do with it." Eleanor waited until he had gone before closing her fingers around it. She remembered the young husband who had carried linen into the infirmary and allowed herself one silent moment to grieve him. Then, she locked the ring inside her desk. Grief was not forgiveness. That evening, the Crown officer agreed to present the silversmith's register and the preserved objects at the formal inquiry scheduled for the following day. He sealed them inside a metal evidence case and assigned 2 soldiers to guard it in the infirmary office. Eleanor finally slept for less than an hour. She awoke to the smell of smoke. The office window stood broken. 1 soldier lay bleeding beneath it, and the second was missing. The metal case had been dragged into the courtyard. Beatrice waited beside it with a pistol pressed against Lucy's throat. Crow held a lantern over a pile of oil-soaked straw. "Bring me Thomas," Beatrice called, "or the girl dies, and every scrap of your precious evidence burns." Eleanor stepped into the doorway with empty hands. Behind Beatrice, the first flames climbed the side of the evidence case. She had found Eleanor's independent refuge, seized the proof, and chosen the one hostage whose testimony could destroy her. "Let Lucy go," Eleanor said. "Thomas is not part of any bargain." Beatrice pressed the pistol harder beneath the maid's jaw. "He is the only bargain that matters. Without the boy, Nathaniel's title passes to my brother. Without you, no one can prove how it happened." Crow lowered the lantern. Fire spread through the straw and curled around the evidence case. Eleanor measured the distance between herself and Lucy, but Crow stood close enough to shoot before she crossed half the courtyard. "You cannot leave Blackmere with Thomas," she said. "Every road is guarded. Not the water road. A boat is waiting below the mill." That answer revealed more than Beatrice intended. The mill stream passed beneath the ruined bridge and joined the northern canal, where the stolen weapons wagons had been headed. Crow's buyers had not abandoned them. They were waiting for the last witness and the surviving architect of the scheme. Eleanor stepped forward. "You may take me instead. You have already served your purpose." Nathaniel signed every order we needed because he was desperate to believe you guilty. Lucy suddenly drove her heel down on Beatrice's foot. The pistol fired into the air. Eleanor lunged, pulling the girl away as Harcourt and 2 tenants rushed from the side passage. Crow hurled the lantern directly onto the case. Flames exploded across its leather seals. Beatrice fled through the infirmary garden, while Crow fired twice to cover their escape. By the time Crown soldiers reached the courtyard, both conspirators had disappeared toward the mill. The metal case had warped shut. When the soldiers broke it open, the poisoned cups were blackened beyond recognition. The wax had melted into the straw, and Thomas's exercise book crumbled at Eleanor's touch. The silversmith's register was reduced to a strip of scorched binding. Months of proof had disappeared in minutes. At the royal inquiry the following morning, Beatrice attacked first. She arrived under the protection of one of the Chancellor's representatives and claimed Eleanor had abducted Thomas, coerced servants, and burned the evidence after discovering that the silver register named her father as the man who ordered the alterations years earlier. Crow had vanished, leaving behind a signed declaration that Eleanor paid him to move the weapons so she could discredit her husband. It was a convincing lie because it used truths twisted into new shapes. Eleanor controlled medical funds, her father had known the silversmith, and Nathaniel's orders had enabled the shipments. Beatrice displayed Eleanor's initialed blade and a page from the infirmary accounts showing payments to Crow. The payments were genuine, though they had funded winter supplies rather than treason. With the physical evidence destroyed, every explanation sounded defensive. Lucy gave her testimony, but Beatrice's advocate called her a dismissed servant seeking revenge. Mary described the cellar fire, only to be accused of repeating Eleanor's instructions. Even Thomas's account was dismissed as the confused memory of a sick child. The inquiry chairman turned to Nathaniel. He could still protect his title by claiming Eleanor had deceived him. Beatrice expected him to do exactly that. Nathaniel rose without looking toward his cousin. "My wife did not control the orders that moved those weapons." "I did." A murmur passed through the chamber. "I signed the transport authority without inspecting the cargo. I prevented a rider from reaching the silversmith because I feared losing a royal appointment. I transferred household power to Lady Beatrice after Eleanor warned me that doing so endangered Thomas. When witnesses contradicted the accusation, I threatened their employment. When my wife asked me to examine her medical journal, I refused. The chairman warned him that his statement could be treated as an admission of gross negligence and complicity. It should be, Nathaniel said. My pride gave this scheme the authority it required. He surrendered his claim to the northern appointment, resigned his parliamentary proxy, and placed the private Blackmere revenues under temporary Crown supervision until every shipment could be examined. The truth cost him political standing, control of the estate's liquid income, and the public image of an infallible duke. It did not prove Eleanor innocent, but it prevented Beatrice from making her the sole author of his decisions. Nathaniel faced Eleanor for only a moment. There was remorse in his expression, but no request that she comfort him. He had finally told the truth without demanding a reward. Beatrice appeared to have won. The chairman ordered Thomas placed under neutral guardianship and barred Eleanor from treating him until the poisoning charge could be resolved. The infirmary trust was frozen pending examination, leaving 43 families without guaranteed medicine. Beatrice smiled as officers prepared to escort Thomas away. At least the child will no longer be surrounded by poisoned cups, she said. Eleanor looked at her. No one at the inquiry had mentioned that there had been 2 altered cups. The burned evidence could not reveal it. Thomas had spoken only about the cup in Beatrice's room, and the silversmith had given his detailed account privately before his register was destroyed. Yet Beatrice had repeatedly referred to the cup Eleanor supposedly prepared for Thomas and to another intended for herself. When questioned earlier, she had claimed never to have seen either alteration. Her knowledge was impossible. Eleanor turned to the inquiry chairman. Before Thomas is removed, I request permission to ask Lady Beatrice one question about the burned silver. Beatrice's advocate objected, but Eleanor did not need an answer yet. She needed Beatrice to believe some evidence had survived. The maker's number was not recorded only in the destroyed register, Eleanor said. It also appears beneath the detachable base of each cup. One base survived the fire, but we have not established which cup it belonged to. Beatrice's eyes flicked toward the evidence table. It was the smallest movement, but Eleanor saw where she looked, not at the blackened fragments, but at Nathaniel's sealed dispatch box beside them. She believed the surviving base was inside it. Eleanor understood what she must do. Beatrice had distinguished the cups by the direction of their falcons and knew which hidden chamber contained the lethal dose. If confronted with 2 reconstructed cups and the threat of chemical examination, she would have to identify one to preserve her story. Whichever she chose, she would reveal knowledge she could not lawfully possess. The chairman refused to delay Thomas's removal without stronger grounds. Eleanor requested 1 hour. For what purpose? He asked. To allow Lady Beatrice to prove that she knows nothing about those cups. Eleanor looked directly at her adversary. If she is innocent, she has nothing to fear from choosing between them. Beatrice's smile faded. Harcourt understood first. He quietly gathered the surviving silver fragments, while Nathaniel asked that his dispatch box remain sealed before the court. Eleanor no longer needed to recover everything that had burned. She needed only to reproduce the choice Beatrice had made when she marked 1 cup for a child and another for a condemned wife, and force her to make that choice again before witnesses. The chairman granted Eleanor 1 hour and ordered the chamber sealed. Thomas was moved to a side room with Harcourt, Lucy, and 2 crown guards. Mary and the footman were placed under separate protection, so no one could threaten or coordinate their testimony. Nathaniel surrendered his dispatch box to the chairman without opening it. Eleanor asked for 2 undamaged cups from the same Blackmere service, a small pan of warm water, plain beeswax, and the surviving silver fragments. Harcourt worked beside her while the inquiry continued. They removed the bases from the 2 cups and replaced them loosely, turning one falcon inward and leaving the other outward. Neither cup contained poison. The trap depended not on a hidden substance, but on what Beatrice believed remained inside Nathaniel's sealed box. When the hour ended, Beatrice stood before the chamber and rebuilt her accusation with calm precision. She claimed Eleanor had ordered Crow to alter 1 cup for Thomas, then prepared a 2nd cup for herself so she could pretend to be another victim. According to Beatrice, Eleanor arranged for Thomas to find her cup after the arrest order was signed, expecting the boy to become ill but survive. The cellar fire, weapons explosion, and destruction of the evidence had all been desperate attempts to bury a plan that had gone wrong. The Duchess alone possessed the medical knowledge to calculate a survivable dose, Beatrice concluded. She alone benefited if Thomas appeared to be attacked by someone else. Eleanor waited until every person in the chamber had heard the argument clearly. You say I ordered 2 cups altered? Yes. One for Thomas and one for myself. Yes. Which contained the larger dose? Beatrice glanced toward her advocate. The cup placed before you. How do you know? Because you intended to make your supposed suicide appear convincing. That explains your theory. It does not explain your knowledge. Eleanor placed the 2 reconstructed cups on the evidence table. The poison chambers were hidden inside the stems. Their sizes could not be seen unless the bases were removed. The cup at Thomas's place released only a trace when warmed. The cup at mine held enough poison to kill an adult within minutes. No witness described those different chambers in public. The register burned before it could be entered into the inquiry record. Beatrice recovered quickly. Crow told me. When? Before he fled. Yesterday, you testified that you had never discussed the cups with Crow. I meant that I never discussed altering them. Then he voluntarily told you the size of 2 hidden poison chambers, while concealing every other detail of his supposed work for me. Beatrice's advocate objected, but the chairman allowed Eleanor to continue. She turned the inward-facing falcon toward the room. Which cup belonged to Thomas? That one. Beatrice pointed to the inward-facing bird. Why? Thomas said he saw the reversed falcon. He said he heard Crow say the falcon must face the wrong way. He never identified which altered cup carried which dose. Beatrice's finger remained extended. Eleanor shifted the cups, changing their positions. Which cup was placed before me at breakfast? Beatrice chose the same cup again. The inward falcon. You are certain? Everyone saw it rolling in the corridor. Everyone saw 1 cup rolling. Only I examined its engraving after Thomas collapsed. Beatrice looked toward Nathaniel. The Duke must have told her what to claim. Nathaniel rose. I told Eleanor nothing. I refused to listen when she explained it. His admission supported her timeline, but did not solve the puzzle for her. Beatrice placed a page from the infirmary accounts before the officials. These payments went to Crow, she said. They prove Eleanor hired him. Eleanor examined the page. They prove that Crow purchased winter medicine for the estate. That is merely your explanation. Then ask the families whose names appear beside every payment. Mary stepped forward. My mother received the first medicine on that list. Not Mether, Oute. Another servant identified a second family. Harcourt confirmed the remaining purchases. Eleanor turned to Beatrice. You found a genuine account and trusted that no one would ask what the money bought. For the first time, Beatrice had no immediate answer. Eleanor then opened her medical journal to Thomas's earliest symptoms. His attacks occurred after warm drinks softened the hidden wax, not after my medicine. On 2 recorded mornings, he received no medicine at all, yet he became ill after breakfast. Lady Beatrice knew those dates before my journal was opened, because they were impressed on the page found outside her room. Beatrice, insisted Eleanor, had planted the page. Then explain why you ordered Crow to burn the cellar where Thomas's lesson book had been hidden. I ordered nothing. You sounded the fire signal before smoke appeared. I smelled burning. From the opposite wing, through a closed window, Beatrice faltered. Eleanor lifted the silver fragment recovered from the cellar. Its edges were blackened, but the half-falcon remained visible. This piece was found inside Thomas's book before the evidence fire. The footman, Mary, Nathaniel, Harcourt, 2 Crown representatives, and I all saw it. Its existence does not depend upon the destroyed case. Crow set the first fire to eliminate it. You set the second fire because you believed its maker's number could still identify who ordered the alteration. That is speculation. Then open Nathaniel's dispatch box. Beatrice's face tightened. The chairman broke the royal seal. Inside were military papers, Nathaniel's surrendered appointment, and the narrow silver blade confiscated from Beatrice's grate. No cup base lay there. Beatrice stared into the empty box. Eleanor let the silence lengthen. You looked at this box when I said a base survived. You believed it was hidden here because Crow told you he had failed to recover one after the cellar fire. That is why you burned the evidence case and why you have now identified the lethal cup twice. Beatrice moved toward the door, but Crown guards blocked her. Her advocate argued that Eleanor had manipulated an anxious woman into guessing. A guess is not proof, he said. Correct, Eleanor replied. That is why the cups were never the final proof. The chamber doors opened, and the Blackmere silversmith entered carrying his repair daybook, the smaller volume used to record work before entries were transferred into the commission register. Beatrice had burned the formal register, but had never known a working copy existed in his locked workshop. He placed it before the chairman and swore that no one had altered it since the day Crow brought him 2 silver cups. One entry listed the reversed falcons, the hollowed stems, the date of collection, and the name of the person who personally approved the work. Eleanor did not touch the book. She asked the silversmith to read that name aloud himself. He opened to the marked page, examined the signature, and raised his eyes toward Lady Beatrice. Lady Beatrice Vale, the silversmith read. No one moved. Beatrice's face remained composed, but the hand resting against her gown began to tremble. Her advocate demanded to inspect the page. The chairman compared the signature with the one on Beatrice's written testimony, then examined the violet wax pressed beside the entry. The impression matched her private seal. This proves only that I approved a repair, Beatrice said. Mr. Crow told me the cups were damaged. The silversmith shook his head. You specified that both stems must be hollowed. You asked for one chamber large enough to hold 12 drops, and the other no more than 2. When I questioned you, you said, Doctor, Harcourt required measured compartments for medicine. Harcourt rose. I made no such request. Beatrice claimed Eleanor had instructed her, but the repair daybook recorded the collection date. Eleanor had been 40 miles away at her father's memorial service. Nathaniel confirmed that she had travelled with him and remained beside him throughout the visit. Beatrice could no longer place Eleanor in the workshop, explain her knowledge of the chambers, or deny choosing the reversed falcons. The chairman ordered the mill and water road searched. Crown soldiers found Crow before he could board the waiting boat. He carried Thomas's missing cup base, 3 sticks of violet arsenal wax, and a list of military shipments scheduled to pass through Blackmere after Nathaniel's appointment. Crow was captured near the mill carrying Thomas's missing cup base, violet wax, and a list of goods stolen from Blackmere's storehouses. His records proved that he had been selling Crown property and altering the estate accounts to hide the losses. Eleanor had discovered irregular supplies before the poisoning began. Her medical records could expose him, while Thomas had seen the altered cup inside Beatrice's room. Beatrice therefore promised Crow protection after Nathaniel received his new office. In return, Crow helped her remove both obstacles. Thomas was poisoned slowly so his death could be blamed on Eleanor's medicine. Eleanor's own cup contained enough poison to kill her immediately after Nathaniel accused her, making her death appear to be the suicide of a guilty woman. If both victims died, Beatrice's brother would move closer to the inheritance, Crow's theft would remain hidden, and Nathaniel would be left with nothing but the authority that had destroyed his family. Beatrice had first planned to poison him gradually and blame Eleanor's medicine. Once Nathaniel signed the arrest order, she prepared the lethal cup for Eleanor, so her death would resemble the suicide of a guilty wife. When Thomas drank from it instead, Beatrice ordered Crow to burn the records, then tried to kill the boy with laudanum before he could speak. The corrupted Chancellor's representative who had protected Beatrice was arrested after Crow's letters identified him as the man who arranged safe passage for the stolen weapons. Crow lost his estate position and was committed for trial on charges of attempted murder, arson, theft from the crown, and conspiracy. Beatrice was stripped of access to Thomas and held under guard for trial. Her family's claim to influence at Blackmere collapsed with her brother's knowledge of the inheritance scheme. She looked toward Nathaniel as the officers approached. "You believed me because you wanted to," she said. It was the first entirely truthful statement she had made. Nathaniel did not deny it. Before the full inquiry, the servants, tenants, crown officers, and representatives of neighboring estates, he corrected every accusation he had made against Eleanor. "My wife did not poison Thomas. She discovered the method, saved his life twice, exposed the stolen cargo, and protected this estate while I used my authority to silence her. Lady Beatrice deceived me. But deception does not excuse the choices I made after Eleanor placed the truth in front of me." He ordered Lucy reinstated with full wages, guaranteed Mary and the footmen permanent positions if they wished to remain, and compensated every servant injured in the fires. The infirmary trust was immediately restored. Nathaniel added enough private, unentailed property to fund its work permanently. placing control in Eleanor's hands through independent trustees, so that no future Duke of Blackmere could seize it. He also surrendered his authority over Thomas's medical care until the boy reached adulthood. The Crown removed Nathaniel from the Northern Supply Office, suspended his parliamentary privileges, and required him to repay the value of every lost shipment from his private income. He kept his title and entailed estate, but lost the political future for which he had sacrificed his wife's safety. When the chamber emptied, Nathaniel found Eleanor beside the same evidence table where he had once expected her confession. "I know that repairing the damage does not repair us," he said. "I loved the version of myself that your work allowed the world to see. When your judgment exposed my failures, I chose to resent you instead of becoming worthy of you." Eleanor had imagined hearing such words during every lonely hour in the West Tower. Now that they had come, they did not restore what his choices had destroyed. "You had many moments to choose differently," she said. "You refused my journal. You gave Beatrice my keys. You protected your appointment after Thomas drank poison. You took the infirmary from families who had done nothing to you. I remember everyone. Then remember them without asking me to make the memory easier." Nathaniel lowered his head. "What do you want?" "A legal separation, separate residence, and control of the property secured by my settlement. I want the accusation erased from every household and Crown record. I want your public declaration sent to every person who received the original charge." His face tightened with grief, but he did not bargain. "You shall have all of it, and Thomas will decide where he feels safe while he recovers." Yes. 3 months later, Eleanor stood at the entrance of the enlarged village infirmary. The repaired building contained a separate children's ward, a clean water reservoir, and a training room for women who wished to learn basic nursing. Thomas, fully recovered, spent his mornings studying Latin and his afternoons helping Harcourt label harmless remedies. He still examined every cup before drinking, but he no longer feared that Eleanor would disappear when he closed his eyes. Lucy trained as an infirmary assistant. Mary managed the supply room and kept its keys at her own waist. Nathaniel fulfilled every term without sending private pleas for forgiveness. His correction of the record appeared under his own seal. He transferred the promised funds, testified at the trials, and dismissed every administrator who had threatened a servant into silence. Once each month, he visited Thomas in the infirmary garden, but only after asking Eleanor's permission. Their conversations remained courteous and brief. Remorse had made him more honest, but it did not create an entitlement to her return. On the first morning of winter, Nathaniel entered Eleanor's office, carrying the final separation agreement. He placed it beside her untouched breakfast, exactly where he had once placed the arrest order. This time, his signature restored what the earlier one had tried to take: her income, her authority, her residence, and her freedom to choose a life beyond him. "The carriage is ready whenever you wish to leave," he said. Eleanor signed the agreement. She removed the ducal household keys from the desk and returned them to Nathaniel, keeping only the key to the infirmary. Then she lifted her silver cup. Its falcon faced outward. Nathaniel watched her drink without fear. Eleanor set the empty cup beside the signed agreement, walked past him, and opened the infirmary doors to the people waiting outside.